What's up, everybody, and welcome into another episode of Goal Line Dynasty. We got ourselves a little treat for you guys here today. We're going to get into a one quarterback mock draft, a startup mock draft. Obviously, rookies are included in that. I know usually we get after it with some super flex mock drafts, but hey, one QB needs love too. But before we jump into our one QB video, Tyler, how we doing, buddy?
I'm good, buddy. I love one quarterback. I love talking to you. I think one quarterback drafts are a little bit more fun to do because the tiers are a little bit more concrete and more surprising things happen in one quarterback drafts. But yeah, it's always fun to show the love. I'm in multiple one quarterback leagues. It's my foundation. It's a lot of people's foundations. So yeah, it's fun to dive back in.
Absolutely, man. Get back to the roots. And hey, I personally, I still prefer one QB over super flex. It's very close. Like, I'll take anything that you give me as long as it's fantasy related, right? But always going to be a special spot in my heart for one QB. But Tyler, you are our acting commissioner here. Let me turn off these obnoxious sleeper sounds. And buddy, 105. Somebody just fell into your lap.
I'm not taking it. I have to remove that. That's not fair. You have to auto put Jamar Chase. Sorry, you don't get Jamar Chase at the 105. I can't. That's not right. I'll take CD Lamb here though, hands down. My wide receiver 3. I've been saying that since last year when a lot of people were doubting if he was a lead or not. I've always loved CD Lamb, and I thought there was no reason why he shouldn't be anybody's wide receiver 3 in Dynasty, even back to a year ago before he just put up that top 5 season. So yeah, top 5 in just about every stat last year. So I'm taking CD Lamb.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because you're getting your wide receiver 3 and I'm getting my wide receiver 3, right? You and I have debated AJ Brown versus CD Lamb so many times before. And at the end of the day, you're going to be pretty happy with no matter who you get between those two guys, right? Like for me personally, Jefferson, Chase, and Bijan Robinson in that order is my 1 through 3. And then outside of that, if I'm sitting at 109 and I can get either Lamb, McCaffrey, or AJ Brown, I'm going to be jumping for joy. I kind of disagree with the board here of Jonathan Taylor going 101. Maybe it thinks it's still 2022, right? But no, it's I wouldn't be surprised to actually see anyone take JT at least in the top 5 somewhere. So ADP is not too messed up. But looking at the 204 here, I have a decision on my hands. So I don't love taking quarterback too early in one QB. I'm tempted because the Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown stack is definitely a fun one. Like I have that in the league that you and I are in. It's a one QB and it's so much fun. It's so nice. But I can't pull trigger on quarterback that early. You and I have both said that Jahmyr Gibbs is in the top 5 RB for Dynasty conversation right now. So I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. I'm going to take Jahmyr Gibbs at the 204. I mean, 12th overall player drafted in the 2023 NFL draft. I'm getting him at 204. I'm not going to complain about that whatsoever.
Yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs is a huge value there. Like you said, I think he's my RB4 right now. Just it goes Bijan, Brees, JT, then Gibbs. I think it's close to argue between him and CMC, but just given the age gap, I'm gonna go with Jahmyr Gibbs by default over CMC. I think Brees Hall fell. I think Saquon's about fairly valued. But I think another guy just really fell into my lap here, a guy who I have as like wide receiver 6 or it's either between 5 or 7. I mean, it's kind of a toss-up between him, Garrett Wilson, and Jalen Waddle, but I'm going to go with Amon-Ra St. Brown here and just stack up CD Lamb and Amon-Ra St. Brown for a dominant wide receiver combo and a 1-2 punch here. And I think I'll make up for a lot of other stuff later on in the draft.
Yeah, and you've always been higher than me on Amon-Ra St. Brown. You've always been higher than just about anyone I know on Amon-Ra St. Brown. You called the breakout, and every time I tell you he's going to start slowing down, he never slows down. So I'm never going to argue with you over Amon-Ra again, especially since Jameson Williams is out for at least the first 6 games of the season, right? So nothing to hate there. You're tying together a really good receiving core. Now, I appreciate the 3rd-round reversal, buddy. I didn't realize we were doing 3rd-round reversal, and this is great because there is a gift. There is a gift in my lap right now, and that gift is the wide receiver 5 in Dynasty, Garrett Wilson, dude. I mean, come on. If I'm getting Now, first and foremost, I disagree with DeAndre Swift going before him. I disagree with Cooper Kupp going all the way up at 112, and I disagree with Kenny Walker going at 212. But sleeper ADP, it is what it is. We're drafting against 10 computers. But Garrett Wilson, I think in a real draft, there's no shot he falls to the 304. I don't even know if he falls out of the first round. But for the sake of this mock draft, Garrett Wilson, AJ Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, I could not write up a better start than that.
I'm gonna come close to you here with CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Chris Olave, but I agree. I would have done the same thing as you. I would have rather had Garrett Wilson over Chris Olave. And I think I have another stud that's about to fall back to. Oh no, he didn't. Kyle Pitts. I was gonna start off on the team with CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Chris Olave, and Kyle Pitts. That would have just been disgusting. There's a big tier break right there, I think. But yeah, I'm gonna actually love this tier of wide receivers anyways with Devonta Smith and Drake London. I think that Devonta Smith and Drake London should definitely be well above Quentin Johnston and Jordan Addison in terms of the ADP. So I don't know if that's messed up, but I'm going to go and I'm just going to stack up right here, right now on my wide receivers. I'm never going to have to worry about the position again. I'm going to have 4 guys who are going to finish in probably the top 10 or top 12, I think, in the next 3 or 4 years. So good luck competing with that to any roster.
Yeah, that's a damn good receiving core that you have there. Obviously, you're the only person that started off with 4 receivers here. You're the only one that started off with more than 2 so far, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Obviously, we're going to be starting 3 receivers and probably a flex at some point in this fake league of ours, right? And you have 4 guys that are firmly in the top 15 for Dynasty. So that's a hell of a start for you there. So moving on to my pick here, I don't really know what I want to do here. I'm not going to take George Kittle. I was going to lean Mark Andrews, but he went right before my selection here. Drake London, sky high ceiling, right? He had that target share last year going for him. He, all things considered, really, really good rookie year. Didn't have this absolute massive breakout, but was battling Marcus Mariota for the first half of the season, and he actually put up some pretty decent games once Desmond Ridder went under center. So I'm tempted to take Drake London here because of the upside. I do like Jordan Addison as well, but I'm always going to take Drake London in a 1-for-1 over Jordan Addison, so I don't think I'd be able to pull the trigger there. There's a part of me that's tempted to take Miles Sanders here because I think he's going to have a tremendous year in Carolina. But then I'm looking at the board. Ramondre Stevenson is still there too. And if I can get one of those 2 guys at the 504, which I think I can, I'll probably just punt until the next round. So we're going to take the ceiling of Drake London here. I got my 3 receiving core there, and I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah, Drake London, phenomenal value. Should have gone almost a round ahead of where you just got him. Obviously posted a massive target share last year. Obviously just battled Marcus Mariota, but looked more effective, later on in the season. Those targets never went away. They were just bad targets. So as you're going to have to be patient and wait on Drake London possibly, especially in the loaded offense of Bijan, him, and Pitts. But I love Drake London, and I want to buy him in any spot. So,
yeah, no, he's an exciting person to have on your team for sure. But so now I'm stuck, right? Because I was kind of hoping that the board would make its decision for me between Miles Sanders and Ramondre Stevenson. Ramondre, I do have a little bit higher in my dynasty ranks, but Miles Sanders is creeping up there for me, and it's maybe because I'm a homer and I like the Carolina Panthers, but I do genuinely think that he could be this year's Josh Jacobs. They didn't bring in another running back, and this team is going to be playing with a rookie quarterback, right? They're going to be running the ball a lot. They're going to want to make sure that they're taking the pressure off of Bryce Young in year 1. You could say the same thing about New England with Mac Jones. They didn't really bring in any solid running backs there. It could be the Ramondre show. So really just comes down to, do I want Ramondre or do I want Miles Sanders? And I think I'm just going to let the homer in me talk. I'm going to take Miles Sanders. And with where I took him, I think I'm going to have to adjust my dynasty rankings after this video because clearly I'm a lot higher on Sanders than a lot of people would be.
I actually love Miles Sanders. He's one of the guys whose values I love this year. I think he's probably going to give you a Tony Pollard-esque year. I would probably take Miles Sanders over Dalvin Cook, over Derrick Henry at this point. I think Javonte should be down near Miles Sanders range. So I think you got a really good value here, but I don't think you looked closely enough at the board, because I'm going to take your guy, TJ Hawkinson here, and get the supreme positional advantage. A guy, he's 3 years older than Kyle Pitts, but he's definitely going to outscore him this year, I think. So I know it's tough to say definitely, I think, but I'm gonna love the advantage of what TJ Hawkinson showed at the end of last year when he went to Minnesota. I love the spot he's in. I love the offense, even though Kirk Cousins probably isn't long term there. I think if I offered you TJ Hawkinson for Miles Sanders in most leagues, you would probably take him.
I wouldn't. It's close. TJ Hawkinson, if I wasn't going to go running back there, Hawkinson was definitely on my short list. But I think Hawkinson was a result of just Minnesota's play at the end of the last year and not really having a solid wide receiver too. I don't think TJ Hawkinson is going to lose much target share, but them bringing in Jordan Addison is a pretty big deal. And ultimately, that's what kept me away from drafting TJ Hawkinson at 5'4", just because I do expect kind of a downtick a little bit. But still, I mean, as long as he extends in Minnesota, he's gonna have a pretty damn good career there. So nothing wrong with that at all. I think where you got him is definitely a steal.
And now I'm stuck between going with running back or quarterback, right? So I have a decision. I could go Dameon Pierce, Zach Charbonnet, or even potentially Cam Akers. I prefer Dameon Pierce or Zach Charbonnet over either of those guys. Cam Akers or Devin A. Chain, just in terms of draft capital and landing spot situation, all those things. But there's also the route I could go. I could take a quarterback here. I could take Trevor Lawrence and have long-term fit. It's a dynasty league. I think even though it's a one quarterback league, quarterbacks do still matter, and it's good to have that security for a long time. So I could either go running back here and kick the can down the road for a guy like an Aaron Rodgers or Daniel Jones, Kirk Cousins, something along those lines, or I could go running back. I think because I have TJ Hawkinson and Kirk Cousins is still a fine option in a one quarterback league, I'm going to go with running back here, and I'm going to go with the guy who got the highest draft capital in Zach Charbonnet, even though I don't love the situation.
Yeah, that's solid. I think I would have personally leaned Dameon Pierce, and I am tempted to take Dameon Pierce here just because Houston really didn't – I mean, they didn't draft anyone. We really thought they were going to. And Dameon Pierce's only competition for touches this year is Devin Singletary. He was amazing last year, right? He had over 1,000 yards on the ground as a rookie, and I would expect more of the same out of him. But I'm not going to take him here. Because here's the thing. Right. And I can say this out loud because you don't get to pick again until I pick two more times. So I like the idea of Dameon Pierce, and I like the idea of Brandon Ayuk. And I think I'll be able to get one of them at 704. I'm going to take your buddy Trevor Lawrence here because I'm looking at the quarterback board, right? Kyler Murray won't be available for half of the season. Anthony Richardson is a coin toss at this point. Dak's getting up there in age. Tua's got injury concerns. I love Bryce Young, but it's going to take him a year or two to really get his footing down in the NFL. So I'm going to take Trevor Lawrence here. I think that's going to completely stack my roster, and I'm comfortable enough at the 609 taking a quarterback in one QB. I think this is not too early to look at that quarterback position.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, Mahomes at the 1.7, Josh Allen at the 1.10. That's way too high. I think very end of the second towards like mid-third is where you could look at them. But in reality, there's no way I'm taking a quarterback over that tier of receivers in the third. But in terms of their value, I could see it going there. Because in reality, the quarterback position is pretty much like the tight end position in one quarterback leagues, except there's more quarterbacks to go around. So they should be very much more discounted than they go in these mock drafts.
Yeah, and I will say, if you ended up taking Trevor Lawrence or just he wasn't available there at 609 for me, I'd be punting quarterback until the 10th or 11th round at this point, just because at this point it's anyone's guess, right? I think Trevor Lawrence, in my opinion, and we've talked about this in our Superflex leagues, The only quarterbacks that he should definitively go behind every single time is Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, and Burrow. He needs to be in the same conversation as Herbert, Jackson, and Fields, potentially even higher than that, right? So getting him at 609 when Herbert and Jackson both went in the 4th round, I'm absolutely stoked for that. And then I'm also stoked that I'm getting one of those two guys that I wanted here in Brandon Ayuk. I said it once, I'll say it again. Brandon Ayuk's the wide receiver 1 in San Francisco. He is much more talented than Deebo Samuel as a receiver, right? Deebo Samuel is that gadget kind of do-it-all guy. But getting Brandon Ayuk 4 rounds after Deebo Samuel is just stupid. He was a top 15 or top 16 wide receiver in 2022. Over the last half of 2021, he was the wide receiver 16. If I'm getting a top 16 wide receiver at 704 to be my wide receiver 4, sign me up all day.
Yeah, I love Brandon Ayuk. I think that's a huge discount, 7-4 in a 1 quarterback league. I think, he's a guy who just finished as a top 15 receiver in PPR last year. So he probably should be going up near the mid 5th, early 5th. I view him and Michael Pittman in the same light, and you just got him, 2 full rounds later than that. So I do really like Brandon Ayuk there. Leaves me in a very, very tough spot. We do have I have 2 more flex positions to fill and a running back and quarterback position to fill in my starting lineup. So I could look to just stick with this rookie running back class and go Condre Miller. I could go Brian Robinson. He's another guy who, they didn't bring in any competition for. I would have loved to get James Conner. He finished off the year really strong last year. Also didn't bring any competition in. I think Tajay Spears has a clear path to targets, but that's only really if what Derrick Henry gets hurt. I think Condre Miller, Alvin Kamara has been in a committee backfield in the past. I don't see why at age 27, with all the question marks, why he wouldn't be, especially with the possibility of, him missing some time. We're not sure how that's going to pan out, but I'm gonna stay young here, and I'm gonna go Condre Miller.
Yeah, I like that pick. I think Miller has a really good chance of taking the RB1 role at some point in New Orleans by the end of 2023, if not by the start of 2024. It's no secret that Kamara is likely on his way out of New Orleans, especially with his legal troubles. Kendra Miller, they bring him in. He's a day 2 running back, and then they also signed Jamal Williams. So it's going to be a little bit of a headache in 2023. I think there's definitely going to be potentially a three-headed monster back there, and it could be a bit of a headache. But Miller is very talented. He's been compared to Marshawn Lynch before, and if you can get the next Marshawn Lynch at 708, I think you got to take it. If I'm on the board in your spot and I need to take a second running back, I think Miller would have been my pick there as well. So that's a solid choice.
Yeah, he kind of fits like the Alvin Kamara partner role like pretty perfectly, right? Like he doesn't really have much like receiving upside or anything like that. But he's gonna have a lot of those, first and second down carries and the carries that people don't think matter. But we'll see how that one pans out. Being that my team is so young, it enables me really to go Kyler Murray here. I think it's a value that the 8.5 to get a guy who has been a top 5 quarterback twice in a very short time span. I think that he is well worth the value here. Well, he was QB6 and QB3, and then he missed a couple games and ended up QB10, and obviously missed a handful of games last year, a lot more games last year. But I think Kyler Murray still can be a top 5 quarterback, and I'll just have to wait it out for those, 5-6 games that he might miss, and I'm not going to kick myself in the butt next year when I realize that he's still very talented, and I just had to have a little bit of patience with him.
Yeah, and I think it's a good move, right? You take Charbonnet, you take Miller. Your running back room is questionable, and it could take a little while for them to catch their stride. You might as well commit to it and take Kyler Murray, right? Everyone's going to hit their stride all at once. I think with those last 3 picks, right, you're going to have to really rely on your top 5 to carry your team if you want to be a contender in 2023. But looking beyond 2023, Charbonnet, Miller, and Murray, they're all – they should all come on to it at some point in 2023, but if they're all healthy at the start of 2024, it's going to be a lot of fun with that roster, right? So no complaints from me there. I really want to take my RB3 in round 8 here. But looking at the board, I can't do it, right? A.J. Dillon, Tajay, Fournette, Tank Bigsby, Antonio Gibson, Roshan Johnson. Like, looking at this board, there is nothing here that says that none of these guys I should be taking over Jahan Dotson. Like, I can't believe Jahan Dotson is still there at the 809. I know it was kind of an up and down year last year, but I mean, dude, his first career start ever, he had a 3-touchdown game. Terry McLaurin is always going to be taking off the top coverage, and Dotson is going to become like the security blanket to new quarterback Sam Howell, right? So I think there's just a ton of value to love here. Like, I'm thrilled to get Jahan Dotson at 809.
Yeah, supremely underrated for what he showed last year in what was probably the worst quarterback situation that almost any of the receivers outside of Drake London really saw last year, the rookie receivers at least. And he showed a lot of potential and produced. You were able to put him in your starting lineup right away, like you said, 3 touchdowns in that first game. And he didn't just fade off after that. Injuries got in the way, but he was effective when he was on the field. Showed plenty as a rookie receiver to not be drafted at the 8-9. So definitely a great pick by you there, passing on that tier of running backs for Jahan Dotson. As you can see, not a single running back went between there and your next pick here. As I'm looking back, I really regret, because I would have rather had either Jahan Dotson or Calvin Ridley, and a combination of either Tua or Deshaun Watson, or like later than that to Daniel Jones, Kirk Cousins, then have Kyler Murray at this point. I think I messed up there. So
you know what, man, it happens. That's why we mock draft, right? Because when you get into the real scenario, now you know what to look out for. But no, I'm really happy because no running backs went. I'm gonna take A.J. Dillon here because I mean, he has standalone value. And then if Aaron Jones goes down with injury, I mean, A.J. Dillon is a weekly, top 15 guy if he does get thrown into a workhorse role, if something happens to Aaron Jones. But going back to Jahan Dotson before I let you pick, like, dude, look at it. Treylon Burks, 6'11". Jamison Williams, 6'4". Obviously, yeah, Drake London should go well ahead of those guys. But I think Dotson deserves to be in at least a similar tier to Burks and Jamison Williams. I mean, he was the only one out of those 3 guys that actually produced solid stats last year, right? Like, Burks had a couple of moments. Jamison Williams had 1 moment, but Dotson is not getting enough love. So I don't know. I'll let you go ahead and pick your 908, but I just had to point that out. He should not be going 2 full rounds behind Burks and Jamison Williams. That seems silly.
Yeah, definitely not. Definitely not. I think he, again, kind of similar to Brandon Ayuk, like we talked about before, definitely undervalued and underrated. But here, my hands are kind of tied. In terms of the receiver room, I could look Rashee Rice, Rashad Bateman. I'd probably go Bateman over Rashee Rice. But just knowing how many question marks I have in this running back room, I think I'm just going to stick with this year's running back class, and I'm going to hammer another one. I'm going to go Tank Bigsby. Everyone's freaking out that Zach Charbonnet was drafted to Seattle and is tanking Kenny Walker's value. People are not tanking Travis Etienne's value with Tank Bigsby. I think Bigsby is definitely a candidate to get a significant share of the backfield. I don't think they would have drafted him if that wasn't the case. But I love getting Tank Bigsby in the 10th, pretty much late 9th, and I think he's got a chance to produce for a lot longer than a guy like Ty Lockett, and I like him a lot more than guys went before him, and Gabe Davis and Marvin Mims. We kind of already know what A.J. Dillon's going to be. He's not going to explode in value, really. I don't think he is. I don't think he's as talented as Tony Pollard is. I don't think that's going to be a Zeke and Pollard situation where that value blows up. But that being said, I probably he would have been in contention there for me. But I love Tank Bigby's value there, and I'm gonna polish this turn off with the guy I mentioned before, Rashad Bateman, who was in contention. I'll take another young receiver who was drafted in the first round, has injuries gotten in his way, and he is my last flex spot, so I'm not relying on him to be a home run hitter. But any production that I get out of Rashad Bateman will be beneficial for my team.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that at all. I wish I realized Deshaun Watson was going to fall all the way to the 10th. I mean, I guess I wouldn't have gotten him here at 10:09, but I'd be pretty comfortable with taking Deshaun Watson, even up at 9:04, maybe even 8:09 if it means missing out on Trevor Lawrence at 6:09. So definitely something interesting to look at there. And I like your two picks with Bigsby and Bateman. Like you said, ETN, his value probably should take a bit of a hit due to Tank Bigsby and what they're going to do with him as he comes in. Obviously yet to be seen, but you got the young running back squad here, 3 rookies leading the way. How are you feeling about that?
Pretty good, because I mean, considering this isn't a real draft, I haven't traded away my 24 first or anything like that. Like, I could take this team any way I want to. If Kyler Murray takes all season, 10 weeks to recover, and I'm forced to start, Daniel Jones or whoever I get later on, and like the team sucks, then I'll just have my rookie pick next year, and all these guys will move down a slot in terms of the running back depth chart of my fantasy team. So if Zach Charbonnet moves to my RB2, Condre Miller moves to my RB3, or if I move for a piece midseason, like, I don't know, I think there's so much value, but the window is just so big, for this team, and there's so many ways I could go about it that, like, I'm not stressing about it whatsoever. Like, my running backs are younger and have a longer shelf life than any of the running backs in the league, and they're probably going to be, in that top 24 to 28 range, and are probably going to be, definitely usable in a lot of for a couple seasons. Projecting them to be top 24 for 5-6 years is obviously not realistic for any running back, and not a guarantee for any running back. But I think, giving myself that wide window to play with them and move them and see what I need to do, it just gives me as many options as I need, and I can go about this anyway.
Yeah, no, it's good to keep the options open there. And like you said, at least one of them will hit, chances are, right? So it's something to look forward to there. But here in round 10, I have everything filled out except for my tight end spot. I can wait on tight end. They're all a dime a dozen at this point. There's a lot of similar guys out there. I love Cole Kmet. If he's there at 11-4, I'll probably pull the trigger on him because he offers, a really good balance of young upside, but also we have seen him do it before. So there's room for improvement there, but there's also room for him to kind of increase his dynasty value, which is kind of what I'm looking at this point in the draft, right? I want to look for the ceilings. I want to see what guys have a likely chance of increasing their dynasty values moving forward. And honestly, at this point on the board, there's a couple of guys that could do that, but I see no bigger candidate for that than Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore, dude, everyone was massively obsessed with Elijah Moore after his rookie season. He strung together like 4 or 5 good weeks. Everyone swore he was going to be awesome, faded away into nothingness with the Jets this past year. And then Cleveland sent a day 2 draft pick for Elijah Moore. He's going to be used a ton. He's going to be the de facto wide receiver 2 in Cleveland for Deshaun Watson. And if he goes back to where he was a year and a half ago with how we were valuing him, like Elijah Moore was going in the 4th or 5th round of 1 QB startups just a year and a half ago. Getting a guy like that in round 10 who's still 23 years old, I'm very content with that move.
Yeah, and I mean, just going back to last year, people were saying like, "Oh, Garrett Wilson isn't going to be the wide receiver 1 because Elijah Moore is there." Granted, I think I was not one of those people who agreed with that. Thank God. I can look back and be proud of myself for not falling into that. But I mean, I think the value, like, it's just too big of a drop off. Like, he's not going to stay down this low for his entire career. Do I think he gets back to where he was his rookie year? I don't know. We'll see. I think that was probably, closer to the better of Elijah Moore that, we'll see. I think in terms of his target share, but I think he's definitely going to play a bigger role in this Cleveland offense than he did in New York last year. So I love that Elijah Moore is going to be with Deshaun Watson. Maybe I would rather him with Aaron Rodgers, but I love the situation. And I have a lot of him in the underdog drafts that we've been doing. A lot of Elijah Moore in the late rounds. I think he's a big value and a guy who can definitely be startable in 6 to 10 games this year if at his ceiling.
Yeah, no, he's a nice steal there for me. And then I'm going to round it out going Cole Kmet. I won't get too much more into him, but like I said, Target shares there. It's an improving offense. He's got room to improve on his 11th round ADP. I do have him in my top 12 Dynasty tight ends, so more than happy to get him here. Honestly, I like Kincaid. I like Michael Mayer, but I like getting Cole Kmet 2 and 3 rounds later significantly more. We've said it once. We'll say it again. These rookie tight ends, they're probably not going to live up to the hype in year one. So the best time to buy them is after year one. There's almost no reason to draft a rookie tight end in your one quarterback leagues unless one really falls. So I punted, got Cole Kmet. I'm perfectly content with that. Don't love it, but far from hate it.
Yeah, I mean, I know you love the value of getting Cole Kmet. He's your favorite punted tight end. If you're drafting him in the 10th, 11th round. So I think I'd probably rather have Cole Kmet than Darren Waller, who went far ahead of him, and probably over Dawson Knox as well. And here I'm going to go with another young running backs. I feel like I have to. I don't like any of the 25-plus-year-old running backs that are still on the board that are not going to accrue any value. I'm going to go with Mr. Chase Brown. I like Chase Brown's situation. I like the fact that I have both of the backup running backs for both of the guys who could potentially be in legal trouble. Both of the rookies who got decent draft capital. Every rookie running back. I'm going to hopefully find 2 starters out of these guys, and if hopefully they can just keep up. All I need them to do is keep up. If I get 2 guys that put up Dameon Pierce-like seasons, like he did last year, then I'm going to be just fine with this roster and going to be good to contend. I'm going to
wait, before you take. So 1, you got the full-on rookie squad now. That's wild. But 2, I want to make a guess as to what you're about to do here. I want to go into the mind of Tyler Beck and try to extract the information out. So I know it's a 1-quarterback league, but you're not going to have Kyler Murray for the first half of the season. And I know you're really high on Daniel Jones. Is there at least a part of you that's considering taking your QB2 in Daniel Jones here?
I would if TJ Hawkinson wasn't my tight end. I would definitely go Daniel Jones here, but because I do have that Hawkinson share, I would be more likely to target Kirk Cousins because I want that weekly upside of when TJ Hawkinson does score touchdowns. I want my team to have a very good week. I think that's like people talk about, stacking receivers and things like that. I think I'd probably rather stack my tight end with my quarterback, and especially if you're going to, not have a high end one. If you have a high end one, all power to you. It doesn't really matter who your quarterback is. It's just a plus if he's paired with your quarterback. But especially those mid range ones, the tight ends 5 to 15 or even below that, I want them to be paired with my quarterback so that when they do anything, I'm getting a double dip there and getting weekly upside. But Daniel Jones would have been in contention, but now I haven't thought about it at all. So. Give me.
I was giving you that good distraction, right? Just making you waste 2.5 minutes of your pick so that
Yeah, and I haven't thought about it whatsoever. Between Rashad Penny, Zach Evans, Izzy, I do like Izzy. I think Izzy was a good running back in college, but unfortunately he's behind. Actually, Brees is coming off that ACL tear. I have so much Brees in so many spots. If this was a real draft, I'd probably go with Izzy and get the insurance piece. And, Izzy, he could be a guy who gets, a significant role in the beginning of the season before Brees comes back. Zonovan Knight was the one who was getting carries, and I don't think anybody would really argue and say that Zonovan Knight's position as the backup running back for the Jets is concrete and written in stone. So I'm going to go with Izzy and complete the 5 running backs that went this year outside of Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson.
5 rookie running backs. That's some cojones there, my friend. That is definitely some cojones. Now, we're only doing 13 rounds. Obviously, in a startup, you're probably going to have at least 19 or 20, right? I don't plan on taking my backup quarterback or my backup tight end in these next 2 rounds. I would fill those guys. Since I took T-Law so early and I'm fine with Cole Kmet here, I would I would backfill my tight end and quarterback room much later on in the draft, right? So it's going to come down to just running backs and receivers here. I have 3 running backs, 5 receivers. So part of me wants to go with a running back. Let's take a look at this receiver room here, see if there's any can't miss guys left out there. Brandon Cooks should have a good year, but he's nearing his end. Jacoby Myers, there's talk that Devontae Adams could be demanding a trade soon. There's talk that Hunter Renfrow could be on his way out of Las Vegas. Jacoby Myers would be the de facto wide receiver 1. Not that I'm obsessed with the Raiders wide receiver 1 if it's not Devontae Adams, but it's kind of an interesting one there. Probably won't pull the trigger on that, but yeah, scrolling down this list, it's too early to be taking any of these wide receivers. So I'm going to go for a ceiling running back, and it's going to be Alexander Mattison. If Dalvin Cook is out of Minnesota, at this point, the most that they're going to replace him with is Ezekiel Elliott, Kareem Hunt, or Leonard Fournette. And I like Alexander Madison's chances to get on the field an absolute shit ton if they do get rid of Dalvin Cook. So I don't know if it is going to happen. It seems likely that it will happen. And if it does happen, I think Madison is the steal. Madison is the steal of the draft if Dalvin Cook is on his way out.
Definitely. In the pretty much 13th round, I kind of wish I was looking back and seeing him, but Madison, looking at my roster again, I probably would have rather stayed young and gone Izzy and see what could happen. Izzy could be the future Alexander Mattison to Breece Hall as he was to Dalvin Cook. But yeah, I think if Dalvin is on his way out, Minnesota is running out of time to find another running back to add to the roster. We know that, Zeke and Leonard Fournette are still out there. So they could be added to this Vikings roster if Dalvin Cook is on his way out. But yeah, I do like you said, ceiling running back. And if there's any season he's going to blow up, it's going to be this one. So
yeah, exactly. And they just re-signed him too. I think he got a 2-year deal. So they want him around. He's in their plans. So, we'll see. There's also talk about, Ty Chandler or what's his face? Dwayne McBride. Is that their other guy that they brought in recently, I think? But yeah, Alexander Mattison, he's going to get the first hat tip if Dalvin Cook is on his way out of Minnesota. So give me him here. And then I'm going to take Jacoby Myers to round it out. If even one of the wide receivers in Vegas is out this year, Jacoby's going to step in, fill it in a big way. He was one of the highest paid, if not the highest paid wide receiver in free agency this year. So they didn't bring him in just to be their wide receiver 3. He is going to be their wide receiver 2 behind Devontae Adams. And getting him here at 1304, I'm probably never going to slot him into my starting roster unless it's a bye week. But Jacoby Myers over the last 3 years has been one of my favorite bye week fillers. So I'm just going back to the well, hitting up Old Reliable and Jacoby Myers to finish up my draft.
Yeah, he's teetered around that 90 target mark for the last 3 seasons. Even when Devontae got there last year, he still had a serviceable year or so. Yeah. Wait,
well, he was in New England. But
I got him confused with Hunter Renfrow.
No. But still, even looking in New England, it's not like Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi had a tremendous year, right? And Jacoby Myers still found a way to be relevant. So, I'm happy enough with that.
Yeah, but Jacoby Myers, it was going to be between Jacoby Myers or this guy here. Like you said, I wouldn't. Kirk Cousins already went, so I would look to go Aaron Rodgers or Jared Goff. Probably Aaron Rodgers. Just to fill those 6 weeks or whatever, however long Kyler's not going to be there. Because I think Aaron Rodgers could get back to an elite level this year. I could go Zach Evans, could go Rashad Penny just to try to, put one more flyer running back in that room. But I'm actually going to go with Allen Lazard here. Also because if Aaron Rodgers was the guy who I'm going to be targeting in the next round, I'm going to want that weekly upside, but also he was serviceable, especially as a bye week filler or a starter in deeper leagues. If you have, 3 flex spots, you were starting Allen Lazard every week last year when he had, 100 targets and 6 touchdowns. He was a 10-point a game guy just about. So I really did love what Allen Lazard showed last year. He's always been decent, but he's had trouble, staying healthy. But he's staying with his quarterback who really likes him. He's probably not going to get 100 targets this year next to Garrett Wilson. But I do love what Allen Lazard could be in this Jets offense as the wide receiver 2 or 3, coming in there and being a good friend of Aaron Rodgers and a receiver that he liked to throw to last year.
Yeah, it's good that he's got that Rodgers connection going for him. So there's nothing wrong with that here. I mean, like I've been saying, I love shooting for the ceiling. As soon as you hit like round 10 or 11, it's just ceiling pick after ceiling pick after ceiling pick. You might as well swing for the fences. There's no reason to take safe guys after round 12 because you're never going to put one of those safe guys in your lineup unless it's a bye week, right? So go for a guy that could increase their value this year because why the hell not? But Tyler, before we wrap up this video, let's take a look at our 2 teams here. Actually, before we look at our 2 teams, I want to look at Team 1. Team 1 might be the worst Dynasty team of all time. I know this is just computer generated, but my goodness, is it terrible. So JT at 101 was already the first questionable decision they made, but Kenny Walker 212 way too early. Deebo Samuel has 1 good fantasy season under his belt. Dalvin Cook on his way out. Terry McLaurin has never finished better than wide receiver 21 or 22, I think. James Cook, I like the price there, but like Bryce Young being the only quarterback, dude, this is if you draft like Team 1 did here, you need to watch our videos more closely. Not even just our videos. You need all the help you can get. Watch every video on YouTube because this is not how you want to draft your dynasty team.
Dalvin Cook at the 4-1. Yeah, what a turn! What a 3-4 turn there. Deebo and Dalvin Cook instead of going friggin' Devonta Smith, Tony Pollard, or Devonta Smith, Drake London, or
Kyle Pitts, Mark Andrews, like anything.
Yeah, the computers suck, but it's
absolutely terrible. But let's look at your team first. So we've already addressed the running back room, right? We won't bring that up again here, and not too much to talk about with that tight end room because we highlighted it with T.J. Hockenson. Now, you mentioned with Kyler Murray, your contingency plan is probably going with a guy like Aaron Rodgers or Jared Goff a little bit later on in the draft. I like that. I like that tactic, right? You know that Kyler Murray is not going to be available in this first half. You know Aaron Rodgers is going to fill in very admirably. If you fan on him, there are still 2 or 3 other options out there. But like looking at the whole roster makeup, would you consider this? Let's assume in round 14 you take Aaron Rodgers, right? Are you feeling comfortable as a contender this year, or do you think that with the young running back core, with the questions with Kyler Murray, do you think you're kind of immediately inserting yourself into kind of like a standby year? What is your philosophy with this team heading into the 2023 season?
I 100% think I'm competing. I mean, if you look at, I think if Kyler Murray comes back, I think he will come back as another top 10 quarterback. I think he could, next year especially, go back to that top 5 range, and I could have a true positional advantage in Kyler Murray. I think that like you said, we're not going to address the running back room, but I've got, 5 guys that are coming in as rookie running backs that got half decent draft capital or are in half decent spots that are, primed to see some kind of target share, whether it's because of their draft capital or because of their situation. I enjoy that situation that I'm in with that, paired with the advantages that I'm getting in every other position. I mean, give me that, 5-6 point advantage that CeeDee Lamb could give me over everybody else's wide receiver 1. Amon-Ra St. Brown is my wide receiver 2. That turns into, a 6-7 point advantage in its own right. Chris Olave, another 7 to 8 point advantage in my 3 spot. Devontae Smith, another, and my first flex spot, going to be a huge advantage against the rest of the league. Like, that's going to make up for a lot of what this running back room might be missing. And if it doesn't, then I'll just, like you said, stand by, take my mid first next year and go get one of the top running backs next year and move everybody down a slot or trade for one that I really like, if I can get a deal. If there's a team that needs to blow up, if a Breece Hall team needs to blow up, if I can send Zach Charbonnet first to go get Breece Hall or Condre Miller, whichever one of these running backs is producing, if I can go upgrade to a Breece Hall or someone in that range, Jahmyr Gibbs, obviously not off of your roster, but in this situation, in a real life situation, yeah, I'm definitely comfortable with where this roster's at because running backs are a lot easier to buy than receivers, and especially elite tight ends in a 1 quarterback league.
Yeah, I would say I kind of disagree with that last statement you had, but only to an extent, that running backs are easier to buy than receivers. I think in the offseason that is true. I think in season running backs are almost impossible to get because there's just so few of them that are actually producing at a good level, right? But to your point, you have 5 really young running backs, and chances are 1, 2, maybe even 3 of them are going to hit their stride this year. And with where you drafted them and, just their generic or their general draft capital, you're probably fine with selling any of those guys to tier up at the running back, right? Sell them high once they break out. So I don't hate it at all. I would agree. I do think you're contending. Obviously, the running back room is shaky. You need things to go your way. But to your point, you have that additional advantage from your wide receivers enough to keep you competitive. As long as this team can stay competitive through the first 6 weeks of the season, right? Like if you can be even 3-3 by week 6, then I think you have a chance because this is a team that's going to hit its stride midway through the season with how young it is, I think. So get lucky early on and then you'll contend, I think, later on in the season. So that's a good call there.
Yeah, and I think the receiver room is set like right in its prime. So it's like CeeDee Lamb going into year 4,
Yeah.
going into year 3, Olave into year 2, DeMonte Smith into year 3 or whatever it is. Like
your top 5 picks are all going to do it for you. They are.
Yeah, and I'm loving every little bit of it. And I really only need 2 of these 5 running backs to produce, and then I can fill in the gaps everywhere else. Maybe 3 would help in the flex spot, but I mean, whose 3rd flex spot is really great right after their startup drafts if they haven't made any trades, there's not many teams that are gonna have a stud that they can count on a week-to-week basis in their 3rd flex spot there. So.
Yeah, I agree. Because I was just looking at it and I was like, ooh, my 3rd flex is AJ Dillon. But then you look at everyone else's round 9, and it's like, well, Jonathan Mingo, Mike Williams, Mims, Rashee Rice, Tyler Lockett's pretty damn good flex option there. I like that one, but not a guy that I'm going after in the 9th round in a dynasty startup. But looking at my team, I'm kind of in love with my first 8 selections, to be completely honest with you. T. Law, we talk about him all the time. That's a top 5 quarterback upside right there. Gibbs and Miles Sanders, I don't see a world where they're not both at least top 15 running backs in 2023, right? And then A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Drake London, they're all in my top 15 rankings for dynasty wide receivers. Brandon Ayuk is my wide receiver 21. Jahan Dotson is my wide receiver 28. So I have 5 receivers in my top 28 of my rankings in the first 8 rounds. So I'm really excited. This is a very young team. Like all down the board, my oldest guy the oldest guy on my roster is Jacoby Myers at 26 years old? 26 years old. Yeah. AJ Brown, I think he's also 25. So this is a ready to go roster right now. And I think it's going to pay some dividends over the next several years. So very, 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 very happy with mine.
Yeah, I would rather have your team than mine, even though I think we would be the top 2 teams in the league. I think your receiver room, even though you didn't, commit your first 4 rounds to it, it's definitely like in a 1-for-1 deal, like top 5 versus my top 5. Like I'd probably even rather have your top 5, and like AJ Brown versus CeeDee Lamb, like you said, that's comparable. Amon-Ra to Garrett Wilson, very comparable. Olave to London, very comparable. Devonta Smith to Ayuk, I think there's a little bit of a gap. I'd rather have Devonta Smith, but then I'd much rather have Dotson over Bateman. So it's very close, and you also have the Jahmyr Gibbs and Miles Sanders, combo at running back, which I think is very healthy and definitely more than enough to get you by, and probably have a very good advantage if Jahmyr Gibbs turns into what we think. So I definitely like I like your roster better than mine. I just have that tight end advantage that I don't think you necessarily have right now. So I think they're fairly even, but I'd probably rather have yours at this moment in time.
Well, it always makes me smile to hear you say that I drafted a little bit better than you. So, I love hearing that, but not something that I hear too often, and not something that you'll hear from me too often. But hey, when it happens, we both deserve a victory lap, right? But that's going to do it for us here on Goal Line Dynasty today. Hopefully you enjoyed this 1 QB mock, and hopefully it's a little helpful, right? I know the sleeper ADP, I think they really focus on super flex. So there's some things in here that I think do get a little asinine. Like I said, I don't think I should have gotten Garrett Wilson at 304. There's a couple of other questionable decisions in here, especially by, our good friends over there on team 1. But doing mock drafts is very, very helpful to get ready for your real draft. I would highly recommend it. I cannot recommend it enough. If you know what spot you're drafting out of, sign up for these sleeper drafts, right? Get in there, mock draft against the computer. Obviously, it's not the same thing as mock drafting against, real life people, but you're going to get, about a 90 to 95% feel on what that draft is going to turn out for you. And, like Tyler, like you were saying, when you took Kyler Murray, you didn't realize Jahan Dotson was still there. Or, as we keep going on, I saw Trevor Lawrence at 609. I took him. I would have been happy with taking Deshaun Watson a couple rounds later. So practice makes perfect, and you want to be as perfect as you can for these real life drafts. So mock draft it up.
Yeah, I think especially like the top end of the draft is usually pretty accurate. Like I just did I mean, even if you want to like mock using Superflex data and then just remove the quarterbacks to estimate where your values are going to be, I think it's definitely advantageous to go through and do a million mocks and know the tiers better than everyone else and know where you're trading into, so that you're not doing the guesswork when somebody sends you a startup trade and you're not like what you're getting out of that trade based off the fact that you've mocked more than that person, and that's how you win trades, especially in a startup. So
yeah, exactly. So just do your research, get ready for those drafts. I know we're fully in startup season though. I always like saying midway through May through maybe like early July, that is prime time for those startup drafts. So hopefully watching this kind of helps you out a little bit, get a glimpse into Tyler's mind, get a glimpse into my slightly better mind, as we have discussed here, right? Love saying that, buddy. But like I said, that's going to do it for us here on Goal Line Dynasty. Make sure you're hitting that like and subscribe button, and leave us a comment if you got anything to say, you want to ask us a question, or if you want to just tell us we're wrong. Can't promise you we won't clap back, because we love doing that, but we love if we can dish it out, we can take it in. So feel free to leave us comments there. But for myself, for Tyler, and for Goal Line Dynasty, we will see you next time.